Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Slice of the Reef, our new podcast that demystifies the art of saltwater fish keeping. My name is Billy.
And I'm Giancarlo, aka Banana or Fishy Fish. We're going to be your guides today into the amazing world beneath the waves, but also in the box in your living room. Crazy, huh?
Enjoy and easy reefing.
Let's get started. Hey guys, welcome to today's special episode of Slice of the Reef. We have another guest star with us, our second one so far, and it's really exciting. This is Danny from Kung Fu Corals.
Hi guys, how you doing?
Hi, Danny. Hello.
Hi Billy, hi Banana.
Hello. Yeah, so my name's Banana, we're Giancarlo, and then the host here, Billy.
He's actually famous on Reef to Reef as Fishy, which is the most urbane name I've ever heard, but apparently he's like pretty popular. Like he has a really big build thread and he sells a bunch of stuff on Reef to Reef. He's kind of an influencer.
Also that much. Yeah. Danny is well known throughout the industry for his coral and then his use of antibiotics, which is what we want to touch on today. And
he has a really awesome store in San Diego. I drive down every time I can.
In the store?
I've been there maybe like 3 or 4 times. First time he introduced me to Cipro changed my life, helped me save like 16 corals so far.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we have a 3,200 square foot shop in San Diego.
Oh, that's awesome.
Half of it is corals, like packed to the room with coral. And the other half, we've been playing around with, other part of the hobbies, like freshwater fish. Then we did plants and frogs. And, it's my love has always gone back to corals. So we might just convert the other side, Billy, just to corals as well. So we'll have twice as many corals as like off SoCal.
Oh my God.
If we're able to do that, it's just very expensive and time consuming. And I'm not sure if I want to work more than I am already.
Oh my God. Yeah. You just keep signing yourself up for more stuff. It's easy.
Exactly. Can't help it.
You were like in the middle of building out your store and then suddenly you got really interested in frogs, right? Like dart frogs.
Yes.
And so then suddenly half the store was dart frogs.
Yeah.
Converted a giant display.
Yeah, we converted like 2 tanks to frogs and vivarium. But now I think I have to refocus on like just the corals. Like we even got rid of fish. We're like, you know what, let's just get down to what we do the best and what we love the most. And it's just like, what's the one thing is corals. The one thing we can't live without is corals, and the rest are like, fish, okay, frogs, they can all go.
Not the frogs. Oh no.
I love the frogs. I have a frog room at home still with building out. There's 15 of the big tanks from Zomed, and they're full of frogs.
Oh, that's
and yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting hobby when I get home. I don't have to do water changes.
That must be the best change. The best difference between the two hobbies and the water changes.
Yeah.
So, could you give us a rundown of like your history in the hobby and like your story?
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so I started the hobby I started in fish keeping when I was 6 or 7 years old, doing freshwater fish. You got $2, you go to the pet shop and you get like a betta fish or $1 or $2 back then. I'm in my 50s right now. So like phone calls used to be 25 cents. We had pay phones and pagers and stuff. And so as a kid, I mean, all you could afford was like guppies, which for $1 or betta fish. And so at 7 years old, a year after I started the hobby, I started breeding betta fish. And I started selling them back to the pet store for like 50 cents a fish, Then freshwater through my life. And then it wasn't until after college where I'm like, I got a little bit more money now. Let's start doing a reef. My first reef tank, maybe about 25 years ago, was 5 gallon. I had that for about a month, instantly hooked. And then looking to upgrade to maybe a 60 gallon or so. Found a 500 gallon tank on Craigslist. It was sold to me by Michael Chan. And if you guys know, he is the owner and he runs SoCal Reef, which is another really big farm in SoCal. So I bought that from him, had it up and running, out of college, had a good job, ton of money. So I would put all my money, I was single, I put all my money in a 500-gallon tank. By the time I was done, I had $60,000 invested in that tank.
Oh man.
And because it was a used tank and we ran metal halide, the metal halide was so hot, it broke the center brace.
Oh no.
And within 2 weeks of the center brace breaking, before I get a chance to fix it, the seam cracked and $60,000 worth of corals were like just everywhere. I had a giant clam the size of a basketball.
Oh
it
my
barely
God.
fit out of the tank.
Was it a gigas or was it just a really old?
It was a gigas. I bought it when it was the size of a football. 2 years later, it was the size of a basketball. It was amazing. So
$59,000 of that valuation was purely poured into alkalinity for the clam, I assume.
Oh, it was ridiculous. I had to have a 250 watt metal halide right over that clam. You know, it was just crazy. But it was a wonderful clam. It was awesome. But that was my step into the hobby, 5-gallon. 2 years later, I had a fully packed 500-gallon reef tank. It was packed with everything. And then it broke. And then within 3 years, I had left the hobby because I'm like, I can't recover. 60,000, had to fix my floor. I'm gonna go do something else. Went back to freshwater. And it was like, I took an 8-year break, came back, and things has completely changed. We went from VHO, metal halide, to now we're doing like LEDs. I'm like, what is this? Like, oh, what? All these type of skimmer. So I got back into the hobby and I've always been like, okay, hobby's expensive. How do we pay for it? Well, maybe I can grow coral. I started selling out my garage, right? And then I'm like, okay, well, I stopped teaching. I had my kids at that time. So I'm like, okay, well, I was teaching martial arts for about 8 years on the side as well. And hence the name Kung Fu Corals, right? So once my kid, yeah. And it's interesting because Kung Fu Corals is not because I taught martial arts, but the philosophy of reefing comes from my martial arts training. It's always about balance, you know, so how do you balance the reef? Well, there's fish and corals and they have to stay balanced. In fact, if you look at my logo, it's a yin-yang symbol. On one side is my 3 favorite fish, like an 8-line fairy wrasse, a Morse idol, and a gem tank. On the other side are like torches, SPS, zoas, and they have to be balanced, right? And that's what a reef is once it's balanced, everything thrives. The fish thrive, the coral thrive. The fish is sick, the coral is gonna get sick. So that's where the name came from anyway. Well, anyway, I got back into the hobby, quit teaching martial art, had a lot of free time. I'm like, I'm going to open up a shop and have my dream job. 5-6 years later now, it's like, oh man, I've been working my butt off for 5 or 6 years and it's not easy to build a brand and, you know, trying to get customer, trying to sell, and then meeting industry people. There's some really, really good people in the industry, but then there's also some really, really bad, shady people. And I think I've met pretty much all of them, you know. So that's where we're at now, is like, that's where Kung Fu is now, is like a lot of trial and tribulations. You know, like about 20 years worth of experience reefing, all packed into a shop, and all my philosophy with my reefing comes from my martial art training. And then the customer service side, it just comes from, I think, my parents. I would just say good parenting, just don't do people wrong. So I think those things combined make Kung Fu Coral what it is today.
Wow, that's so cool. I never noticed the yin and yang in your logo, but that's really cool now that I see
saw
it.
the right side. I saw the right side of it with the coral, but I didn't notice the three fish. And actually, now that you describe it, it's really, really, really cool to see.
Yeah, it's a very subtle logo. Initially, I want it to be more like, oh, you look at it, you can see yin yang, but I'm like, you know what? We're gonna make it a little bit more subtle, and people who pay attention, we're gonna go, oh yeah, I see it now. But once you see it, you can't really unsee it.
Mhm.
You know, now you see it. Now you know the philosophy, and now you know the reason. There was a lot of thought put into the logo as well, because it's gonna symbolize your brand, or I mean, what you stand for, right?
Really. I like it. So, do you have a personal tank, or is it just a trophy right now?
I actually had a lot of personal tank at home. As many of you guys know, this has been a tragic year for me. My dad had a stroke last year, and he finally passed in March. And when he passed, I moved my family back in with my mom so that she won't be alone. And so at that point, I had to sell I had a dream tank. Again, it's like another 500-gallon tank, 8 foot by 4 feet by 2 feet tall, like all the fixing, all the safety parameters. Cause I'm like, there's no way this tank is gonna break on me again. You know, like we had metal stand, and that was my dream tank. Unfortunately, I didn't want to take it with me because it would be too much work. Moving.
Yeah, big tanks are hard to move. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm always trying to occupy my time with something. I can't just sit still, and that's where the frogs came in too. Like, I can't bring a tank home, but let's build a frog room because it's much less work.
Nice.
Yeah, I do have a personal nano tank at work now. I just posted it. It's a 15-gallon tank. Full spectrum light, soft coral, super easy to maintain at this point, but I'm not sure how it's going to go long term. But that's kind of like my personal tank. It's a 15-gallon weeping willow mushroom tank. Nothing crazy.
Beautiful.
Yeah, nothing crazy at all.
Wait,
I'll
are
link
you
it to
talking
the
about
chat.
the true Japanese weeping willow?
I have been actively asking people, seeking now, and I believe I finally found the white weeping willow. Now,
Oh man, that's a good beauty.
I say white, but there's no such thing as a white coral. In full spectrum, you're gonna see a little bit of a tannish color. It's not brown, but it's kind of like a tannish color.
Yeah, from the Zooxanthellae, I think, right?
Yeah, so it's gotta have some color. It can't be just completely white unless it's bleach.
Like roasted coral.
Yeah, exactly. And I have a purple one that is also long tentacle. Also a neon green one is also long tentacle. And I've seen them all called weeping willow. So now I think that name just stick with anything that's long.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to get the original Jake Adam weeping willow. One of my followers says he can get it. I've been hassling him.
Fingers
But-
crossed.
I mean, it's just to have a piece of Jake, like weeping willow that he's talked about. It's just a piece of history. You know, that's something that you just gotta have for a personal thing.
Yeah, if you think about the amount of time that Jake spent in the hobby and how giving and generous he was with frags and how prolific his mother colonies were, there must be a bit of Jake Adams in like 30% of tanks across the US. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's amazing how his influence reached so many people.
Yeah, and still does.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you are trucking through what sounds like a very trying year for you. We brought you here today to not only talk about the incredible store that you run in San Diego, but also talk about the particular expertise you have in antibiotic treatments for corals. For those of you who don't know, the KFC dip, the Kung Fu Corals dip, comes from Danny's shop. It's a comprehensive, very complicated, but intricate, but successful dip procedure. And we wanted to spend some time today talking to Danny about this dip, talk about how he stumbled across it or how he built it up, and just get like the expert opinion on how to do it the best way.
Okay. Let me start up by saying I am not an expert on antibiotics by any means. Okay. So, what I know, it's from reading articles, doing research, talking to Cunningham Reef, Dr. Ryan.
Yeah, he used to be local to me, like an hour or so.
Yeah, he's really, really good guy. We chat a lot at the beginning when we were like testing out different combination of antibiotics, doing research on what is safe, what works and stuff. And, and all that came because when I was just a hobbyist and buying corals from people, like there was no issue. Like, it came from a thriving, healthy tank. You buy thriving, healthy coral, you put it in a tank, and yeah, it just works. But the problem came about when Indo was closed, when I was buying Indo corals, I didn't have any issues either. When Indo opened back up again, and now I'm like, okay, like there's an influx of coral. People are able to import, and we're getting wholesale corals, and we would get them in, they would look good for a week. Then all of a sudden, like, bam, a colony would die. Like something would die. Like it would just continuously die. And we would run ICP tests. We do our due diligence. Is the water good? Are your parameters good? Everything's good. We dip for pests, and things would just melt. And so we would have to think, well, if all your parameters are, what else can it be? What are we not able to test for currently in the hobby that could be devastating? And so, we watch YouTube or Netflix about like saving the coral reef, and like how scientists are using amoxicillin in Australia to kind of like stop RTNing on brain coral. They would make amoxicillin paste. I mean, obviously they can't just dose amoxicillin into the ocean. So they would make it into a paste, and they would kind of like smear the area that was the boundary where the corals were receiving. Like this is a SPS, like a type of brain coral, or LPS. And they find that the area that they applied this amoxicillin was actually stopped the recession, and over time kind of grew back. And that was perfect because when I read about the article, they also talk about the half-life of amoxicillin and why they chose it. They chose it because of, it's quickly neutralized by light, and it has a short half-life, meaning when you put it into your system, it's going to be effective, but then it's going to quickly become very ineffective and just kind of like be inert, right? So that's just from what I read. So we're like, okay, well, we know we use Cipro in the hobby. I know people that use chemiclean, we use witch hazel, peroxide. I've tried every single thing possible. Advice from people who have been in the industry, advice, everyone has advice. Oh, I've done this and it always worked for me. I've done this and I've never had a problem. I'm like, yeah, but none of all that is just BS. Like, no one tells you they do something and it's like, it's going to work 100% of the time. Even the KFC dip doesn't work all the time. I think that's due to like some corals are just sick, or like we catch the infection too late and it's too late for that one coral. So after trying all that, I'm like, you know what? We're losing a lot of corals, importing corals. Let's just experiment. I set up a 25-gallon frag tank. Let's put all the corals that are probably gonna get thrown out or gonna die, and we'll just put antibiotics in. We'll put chemiclean in. We'll do this, and then, like we just experiment with them. Like, hey, these corals are living. They're not dead like they normally are. They're living for a few more days. Okay, let's try this. Higher dosage, 100 milligrams per gallon. Let's see what happens. At 100 milligrams per gallon, things will survive. After about 3 days, the water quality is so bad, they start kind of receding again. So we backed off, and we finally settled on about 5 milligrams per gallon, where things are very effective. And even if you put it there for a day or two, they won't die. But anyway, the KFC treatment just came out of just desperation. We got nothing to lose. These corals are gonna die. Let's try everything. Let's try everything and try everything at once, and then back away, see what doesn't work. You know, so that's why I said that I'm not an expert on antibiotics, but we did a little bit of research to see what's effective other people are using, and we just kind of like mad scientists it, put everything together, and actually just stumble on something that works. And over months and months of testing, like that's when I'm like, okay, you know what, this is showing to work. I've saved a lot of corals. I think 2.5 years ago, I started doing that experiment with the Three Stooges torches on my Instagram. So we had 3 torches with varying degree of brown jelly. And every day I went in and updated, took pictures, cleaned it. And we're actually able to save all 3 torches. One of them, I think Mo, was actually brown jelly trice. It became a half head. Then it brown jelly, then we cut it, it became a quarter head. And in a year's worth of time, that quarter head grew back to a full-size Holy Grail torch again. Yeah.
Holy moly.
It's crazy. I mean, if you're at the shop, or I can post, I have a couple of torches that came in really bad and damaged, and they're not even a quarter head anymore. In fact, they don't even have a mouth. Yeah, I can try to post it next time at the shop, but they don't even have a mouth anymore. But if you look at the tissue around the circumference of where the tissue around where it is, you're seeing new growth in the tissue, and it's actually growing tentacle, you know? And that's something that we would have tossed out, fearing that it's going to infect our system. Mm-hmm. And now with the right procedure and a lot of work, you're able to save these corals, which wouldn't have a chance before.
Incredible. One of the first lessons I had to learn because I've run the KFC dip on probably hundreds of corals at this point. Not as many as Danny, probably. But you need to treat the treatment tank like it's a normal tank. Like if you put a bunch of corals in a bucket of water at room temperature with the meds in them, your coral's gonna die. Because if you did that without the meds, they would die also.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's very important to maintain water quality during the dip. And that's why I had people do a sponge filter, because anything that's dead or dying would come out and maybe get captured inside the sponge. And now you're not just having a power head spitting dead stuff onto the corals that might not have been so weak, you know? So when we did that without a sponge filter, the water would get so bad because all these dead stuff would come out, and it was just so murky that now the corals that weren't as bad now is sitting in a soup of like really bad stuff, you know, like the bacterial soup. Like brown. Yeah, exactly. It's nasty. So we're like, you know what? We're killing the coral not because of the med, but we're killing the coral because the water quality is crap, you know.
I've realized that a lot of people, when they do bacterial baths, they'll literally just stick it in the bucket with an air stone with no filtration. And when you do any kind of bath like that, the coral's going to shed a lot of the layers of skin or tissue, or that tissue, necrotic tissue. Yeah. And yeah, like Danny just said, if you don't have a filtration and a method to catch that, you're just going to lay it onto itself. And especially if you're bathing that coral with other coral that are not as bad, you're going to increase the chances of affecting the other coral as well.
So because of that, when we're doing the dip and like seeing how people are doing it, and the rate of success was like pretty good, you know. But then after that, we're like, well, why is the rate of success so low where it should be? That's why I go, before you do the KFC dip, there's a pre-dip, right? A pre-wash with hydrogen peroxide, and then a post-wash. And the idea of that was like, okay, if you take a torch that's brown jelly and you stick it into the dip with a torch that's not brown jelly, and you're kind of like killing the bacteria, this stuff is floating around, you got power head running. Now you got brown jelly distributed throughout the entire bath. So everything's soaking in brown jelly, right? So if the idea of the pre-wash with hydrogen peroxide is clean it off with a turkey baster, The brown jelly is going to get blown out. It's going to be really nasty. The hydrogen peroxide is going to oxidize this thing, the stuff that's dying. And now when you put this coral that has brown jelly, once you put it in a dip, it's relatively clean. It's tissue that has maybe damaged tentacle or like receding heads and stuff like that. But there's no brown jelly on or there might be some bacteria left over on there, but it's not like all brown jelly making your dip nasty. That's why when we did that, success rate for saving even half head of torches or the head of torches went up significantly. So we're like, okay, well, you washed them, do the KFC dip to kill bacteria. Now you have dead bacteria that's sitting on your plugs and torch. Like, how do we make sure that doesn't go back into the system? Well, hey, let's wash it again. Let's use another fresh mix of hydrogen peroxide rinse, and anything that the KFC dip has killed, let's go ahead and clean it, oxidize that stuff out. And then if you're really careful, you can rinse again with tank water and put it in your tank. For us, I think the peroxide does a good job. We put that back into the tank immediately, and we saw like much faster recovery. You know, like torches that were like brown jelly would actually open up like the next day and nice and clean. So that's why I think after the KFC dip was kind of like released, that information was released, I went back and I modified it because people were using it more and added the pre and post rinse as well.
It's funny because that's actually a similar process to how you deal with damaged tissue on humans, on people. You know, you remove the dead tissue, the necrotic stuff, or what the brown jelly would be on coral. You treat it with an antibiotic ointment, and then you cover it up so that it doesn't spread.
In fact, that's like my way of thinking of the peroxide as well. I always give people the example, like if you have a cut, you're not going to put antibiotics and a Band-Aid on your cut right away. You know, you're gonna wash it. You're gonna rinse it. If you have dead tissue, I mean, you might have to cut out the dead tissue. That's not gonna heal. It's dead. It's gonna be a source of a bacterial infection. So you trim that back, rinse it clean, then you put antibiotics, then you cover it so bacteria can't get back into it. You know, that's exactly the analogy I use for human. And then if you think about how the KFC dip work, and then apply it to like a human being, it's the exact same process, you know?
It's the exact same process. And it's a very good methodology to follow because it's tried and true. I mean, it's got years and years and years of, you know, evidence behind it when it comes to treating people. So
yeah,
why not just in the coral?
Exactly. I mean, it works. You know, there's a reason why we have that procedure for humans. Why not apply it to other things? In fact, when I was doing freshwater fish and koi, like looking back now, the procedure that someone recommended to me was the same thing. If you had like a lesion on a side of a koi where you have flesh-eating bacteria on it, first thing you do is sedate the fish, take a scalpel, cut away all the dead necrosis tissue, wipe it clean, sanitize it with peroxide and stuff like that. Then you put in Fume 2 antibiotics, and then you put denture cream onto the fish. So it's the antibiotics acts as the denture cream acts as a Band-Aid for the antibiotics. But if you think about that process, it's the exact same thing we do for human. And it's the exact same thing like the KFC procedure is.
Yep. So I've got to ask, like, at what point do you consider antibiotic treatment for coral? Like, do you let it get to a certain point, or do you immediately treat it the moment you see the coral not opening up?
What I've been advising people to do is, you know, like rinse it with hydrogen peroxide. If it's active brown jelly, if the head is kind of like spilling out its guts and it's stringy, and you do the smell test, you take the torch out, you smell it, and it smells like, yeah, it's nasty. It's like
the nasty necrotic. It's like a rotten egg or a sulfuric smell.
Yeah, if that happens, you need to cut the skeleton, because let's say in a torch or a hammer, the necrosis might be deep inside the skeleton. and doing a dip and turkey basing on the surface, it's not going to get to the necrosis that's actually killing the torch. So literally, you cut the torch in half if you need to. Don't worry about cutting through the mouth. I mean, it's going to die if you don't. Cut it in half, and you do the peroxide. What I always do is, like, if I ever do that to a torch, I do the peroxide. Before it gets into the KFC dip, I'll smell it. If it smells rotten, I'm just going to put it back in peroxide, maybe make a new clean peroxide, and keep turkey basing so it doesn't smell bad anymore. Then you put the KFC dip in. So at what point do you use for antibiotics? I think if you're using it as a dip, I really feel like there's no danger in just kind of like using it if the torch is not open for like a day or like half a day, and you see tissues that are beginning to peel up, or a little bit of tissue necrosis. That's where you have to treat with antibiotics, so you prevent bacteria from getting to that necrosis, right? If a torch is just not like happy, there could be a reason for flow, your parameters off, too much light, a fish is messing with it, a snail's messing. At that point, if you're looking at tissue and it's like, okay, well, it's just not happy. I usually don't recommend using the KFC dip, because now you're just using antibiotics because you think that the KFC dip is a miracle dip that fixes everything, and it's not. I always tell people it's used for antibiotics. You go to the doctor, they only give you antibiotics if you need to. Otherwise, they say, oh, go home, get some rest, drink lots of water, and send you on your way. So I think we have to apply the same mentality when you're doing antibiotics, because there's a valid argument where too much antibiotics might create a
antibiotic resistance,
bacteria, right?
Bacteria, bacteria that can resist antibiotics.
Yeah, I mean, how do we prove that with the reefing community? How do we? I mean, something that applies to a human being, like, might not apply to a coral, because let's say if you take a lot of antibiotics, or anything in our body, right? Let's say, so I love coffee. Like, before I started drinking coffee, like, a regular cup of coffee would like keep me up all night. I couldn't sleep. And because many years of drinking coffee, I'm like, I'm going to need more caffeine to have the same effect. So now I have to drink a double shot of espresso to get the same effect. So over time, your body's like,
your tolerance goes up for it.
Exactly.
And you need more of it, yeah.
And I think that's where the argument of antibiotics comes in. I think it comes from human trial where, like, if you're using antibiotics all the time, now the next time you need antibiotics, it's going to be less effective in human. Okay. Yeah. What's the difference between human and coral? Well, I mean, we have an immune system, and from what I've read online, corals does not have an immune system. There's been articles where they found cells that might be part of an immune system in corals, so we don't really know one way or the other, But let's say we assume corals don't have an immune system. You put it in antibiotics, and then the antibiotics gets dumped or clean or whatever. The coral doesn't build up that resistant, or that bacteria is like done. It's dead. Yeah. And it's kind of like if you're dipping your coral in Coral X and you're killing bugs or flatworms or whatever pest, you dump that pest. That pest is not going to build up a resistance. It's dead. It's gone.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
So I think for the dip, I think it's a lot safer. And I always recommend people, if you have a 60-gallon tank and you have a problem with 2 coral, dump antibiotics in your system. Don't dose it as a regular regimen. Take those 2 problem coral out, dip it for pests. Then if it's damaged, treat it with antibiotics, wash it, put it back in your system. Now, so you got familiar with the KFC dip, but I've been also releasing to my subscriber the in-tank treatment. And that's where, like, okay, well, you have 100 coral in your system, they're dying every week, 2 or 3 colonies dying. well, your system's infected. I think that's the time where we do the antibiotic treatment in tank. It's super involved, and if you do it wrong or you miscalculate, things could die. That's why that's not publicly available.
Yeah. So where can we subscribe to you to get the in-tank treatment?
Okay, so the subscription is just on my Instagram. You can click on my profile, click subscribe. It's $5 a month. Basically, if you need my help, if you're a current subscriber, then I will spend hours looking at your videos and helping you and troubleshoot and just walk you through it. So if anyone is listening that's also my subscriber and have me help you through that, it is very, very involved. And I figure, well, $5 a month, you're just going to buy me a cup of coffee to help you, basically. You don't have to subscribe the whole year. So when you're a subscriber and you need the in-tank treatment, I send you the document. And then if you don't want to subscribe the next month, that's okay. You still have access to the document. But I always tell people, you know what, let's see if the in-tank is right for you. Tell me your problem. What's your parameters? Have you done this, and this? And if I feel like, yeah, in-tank is the right way, then I will walk them through each day of it,
You heard it here. That's on Instagram. It's Kung Fu Corals, right?
Right. Yeah. All just right. on my Instagram. It's weird because some people's like, oh, why should I pay a subscription for help? You don't care about the community. I'm like, no, I do care about the community. I spend 2-3 hours a day helping people.
Yeah,
it's like that's
the ability
time.
to get the help and the ability to get the in-tank treatment. It's an incredible deal, and honestly, we're grateful that you're willing to help, because a lot of people would keep that up to themselves and wouldn't share with anybody.
Well, I thought about that as well at the beginning. I'm like, oh man, I stumble. So I'm not like a genius where I'm like, oh, this is going to work and figure it out. Well, I stumble on this, again, out of desperation. Had the resources, had enough scientific background because I was a marine biologist. I did biochem, physics, a lot of science in college, and had enough knowledge about that to let me just try some of this stuff. And I just stumbled across something. Once we did the KFC dip, I also talked to Dr. Ryan, and we were like, hey, how about we try this? Yeah, how about we try this antibiotics instead? Because it also targets flagella, right? And flagella is kind of one of the things that they found on brown jelly itself. We don't know if flagella crossed the brown jelly or it's just there to eat the bacteria that is brown jelly. Kind of like if you find a dead carcass on the forest,
you blame the
and you find maggots or vulture on it. Did the vulture kill the thing, or is there as an after effect? Yeah, so we don't know. No one knows for sure. I don't think there's a lot of people that has the funding to do that research. There's people that try, but I don't think it is anything concrete.
Yeah.
And so we came up with Metro, another type of antibiotic, general antibiotics, gram-negative as well.
Metro.
And no, it's we tried it at first. I had to look it up.
So it's not metronidazole, something else.
Yeah, I think it's metronidazole.
Okay.
But we tried that instead of amoxicillin, and I'm like, no. I tried it for a few weeks with a couple polls, and I went back to amoxicillin with Cipro because it seemed to work better. Then we also did, so the KFC dip has 3 main ingredients, right? Like the chemicline, Cipro, and amoxicillin. And then chemicline is basically a form of erythromycin.
Yeah.
Yeah, from what I read, if you look at the package, they're saying it's not erythromycin something, which is a different. Yeah, like maybe a different form of erythromycin, but it might be a different form, like another form. So I'm like, okay, well, let's try erythromycin, cipo, and amoxicillin, and it basically works the same.
It works well.
Yeah.
So why do you add the restore? I've had a few people ask that.
That's a very good question. It comes from if you ever dip corals in a regular dip like Coral X, Revive, Malefics, what happened to the coral? They immediately shrink, right? They close up. So if a coral is closed up, like how does the dip get to the closed up tissue? It really can't. It's closed up to protect itself. If you have a clam, you put it in a dip, it closes up. You could be in bear, and if the clam is closed tight enough, the bear can't get to the clam to kill it, or pest clam, or like tube worms and stuff like that. They close up to protect themselves. Well, the coral does the same thing, right? It doesn't like these dips, so it closes up. So how do we get corals to open? You feed it. You put amino acid in your system, and your coral just like sucks in all this water because it wants to suck in amino acid. And that's why it gets so bloated. So I figured, well, we got antibiotics in the system that's cleaning the outside of the coral. Like, what if the bacteria is actually inside the mouth of the coral? How do we get the coral to ingest that? Well, with a spoonful of sugar, right? It makes it makes the medicine go down. So I'm like, okay, well, again, the analogy is in the human realm. Like, we have this method to like deliver like medicine to kids, right? You put sugar, you put Tylenol in candy, and they don't taste the medicine. They taste the candy. So the corals are not going to taste the antibiotics. They're going to ingest it with the amino acid. And so that's why the restore is in there. I mean, again, this is all theory, right?
Yeah.
Like trial theory and trial and error. And does it work without the restore? Like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to work to some degree. Does it work better? Like, it's hard to tell because I can't take the same coral in the same state and just do multiple tests. It's like you can't control that environment. All you can do is like empirical data. You can go, well, I did this to this coral, and I did this to this coral, and I feel, you can only say, I feel like this coral is actually recovering faster, and so we kept that. It's a little counterintuitive because amino acid does feed bacteria, right? But antibiotics kills bacteria. So
if the bacteria are also like being more receptive to the antibiotic because of the food, then that's a win-win, right?
Well, I think the corals is more receptive to the antibiotics because of the amino in the system.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my theory. This is all observation trial. The good thing is I have a lot of experience with trial and observation, like daily. That's daily. I'm helping people, we're not dipping our corals daily, but I'm exposed to like problems daily. And so
let me interject for a second. There's no other theory that has gone through this amount of trial and error, which is literally the scientific method, as your method. And there's no other theory that has as much data behind it as your quote unquote theory. So I would say, yes, we can treat it like it's a theory with room for improvement, but it is grounded on an incredible success rate that no other like theoretical treatment has achieved. And it's backed by someone who's incredibly passionate and educated about the hobby. Don't talk yourself down, dude. This is an incredible, it's a theory. It's really awesome. It's an awesome theory.
Amazing. It's not just a theory, but a service to the hobby in itself. Yeah. And you were open, like you share this with anyone that happens to come across your page is just huge. Like that's just a huge thing to like put out to the people out there.
Yeah, I when I first came across this, we talked about like thank you for sharing. I'm like, I thought about like not sharing it, right? I thought about, man, I found something incredible. Let's package it up. Let's package it up and make millions of dollars selling it. And then, again, now it comes back to my upbringing with my parents. And as a kid, I'm like, I want to fly like Superman. Like, I'm going to be a superhero and I'm going to save people around the world. If I find a cure for cancer, I'm going to release it so cancer would be eradicated, right? So like, I would say 8 or 9 years old, that was when those thoughts came into my mind. And, still to this day, I'm like, when you're coming up to a decision, what are your core values? Like, what's going to define who you are? Are you going to make this choice and that choice? So that's when I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to release this. I'll make it public knowledge. So what? We don't get rich from it. It doesn't matter, like the legacy, I think it's more valuable than the money. Cause like, financially, I'm okay. I'm not like rich, not poor. We get through stuff. We survive, we work, every day, but the legacy of the KFC dip is just like, that's what I'm going to leave behind 20, 30 years from now. Hopefully I live that long, but that's what's going to be left behind. And that's why I released the dip formula. Like nothing is a secret. It's all on my website. I talk to people, I show them what to do. I give the intake treatment out to my subscriber. If they want to publish that somewhere, there's nothing I can do about that. That's okay with me, But yeah, so that's why it got released. Instead of getting rich, we're gonna help the hobby a little bit more.
That's incredible. That being said, there is a prepackaged version of the KFC dip for sale on his website. I do highly recommend that instead of trying to hack it together yourself, you just save yourself the trouble of rebuying all of these different drugs and antibiotics and treatments. Just get it from Danny. He knows what he's doing. If you don't have the stuff already.
Like the KFC dip online, I think it's just like I initially we sell corals, right? Like I don't want to be doing drug, but I'm like, so many people has asked me, oh, like, can I just buy from you? Or can you, but I'm like, it'd be cheaper. It would a little bit cheaper if you source this source these antibiotics out yourself. People can't get it. And like, oh, I have a need prescription. I can't get it. Or like that. And then they're like, oh, if I buy this brand, will it work? This brand. I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me just put it together. And I'll mock it up a little bit because it takes time to like bring this stuff in, repackage, answer people's questions, because it's not, when you're buying the ingredient, so when you're buying the dip, you're not just buying the ingredient. You cannot compare the price of the individual ingredient. When you're buying the ingredient, I have the dip information, and I also give you like, you can contact me for questions. I'm gonna support. I'm gonna help you out. If you've never done before, it's gonna be tough. I'll help you out. So literally on my website, I tell people you're buying this because you want to support like what I do. But if people don't have money, I'm like, dude, just buy from here. But if you can get it cheaper, you get it from your friend that's a vet, or you can get it from a friend that can give you a prescription because he's a doctor. Dude, just if you can save money, get him. You can save that money for corals. I'm okay with that. But yeah, like literally, if you're buying the dip on my website, it's just convenience. And I mean, we do make a little bit of money on it, but I'm not gonna get rich off of that. In fact, I won't even buy lunch.
I mean, the antibiotic essentials is $40 on the website. Like that's nothing compared to what you'll lose if you let your coral, fall to the bacteria, to bacteria disease, like brown jelly. So if your options are spending $40 for the antibiotics on Danny's website, or rebuying the coral down the road, which is, let's be honest, it's going to cost more than $40. It's a no-brainer. There's no more stuff that needs to go into it. It's
the dip itself, like if you bought the dip or the antibiotics, I package it enough so you can actually make 48 gallons of dip. Literally.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
Like
that's
and it works out pretty well because each pill will make, like there's 12 pills each, right? So each pill will make 4 gallons. That's 4 times 12, 48.
Yeah.
But it works out well because each pill you can divide it into 1 gallon each. And I always recommend dipping multiple days. So you can use 1 pill for 1 session, dip the corals 4 days straight, and you've got 11 more sessions of 4 dips each. You know, like literally 48 gallons. It's not like you're gonna use it all. It's 1 dip and you save 1 coral. No.
Like using it on torches, if there is not a single torch for sale, that is under $40.
Yeah.
So it automatically pays for itself, and then 11 times more.
Like, yeah. I take it back. You're not saving 1 torch, you're saving 12 torches, like 12, not just torches, like 12 sessions worth of coral. Like that's insane.
Yeah, it's not like it's not a money maker. I mean, really, if we come to the point where like nobody buys dip from me, that's okay too. you know, like I said, people who hit me up and don't want to subscribe and their corals are dying or they have a problem subscribing for credit card reason, I'm like, you know what, just subscribe later. Don't worry about it. Give me your email. I'll send you the documents. Send me your videos. In fact, I helped somebody this morning and she couldn't subscribe. She tried to subscribe. She couldn't. I'm like, don't worry about it. Just send me your email. When you get back, send me your video. I'll help you out. If you want to subscribe later, you can subscribe later. $5 is not going to make or break me. It's not going to stop me from helping you.
Yeah.
Or if you don't want to subscribe because you don't want to have a worry about subscription, that's fine. Donate some money to Children's Hospital and I'll send you the document and I'll help you anyway. That's not the point. The whole reason I did the subscription part is like, I felt like I was spending way too much time just helping random people, which I don't mind. Yeah, but like if I'm in the business of consultation and helping people like that, it's kind of like asking a doctor for medical advice when he's off. Like
or when he's trying to heal another patient, like if you're actively working and someone's DMing you on Instagram.
Yeah, he's in surgery and you're like, hey, I have a rash. It's kind of like the same thing. To you guys, it might be a hobby, but like I'm running a business and I don't mind helping at all. I'm probably the most responsive vendor on IG. I get people that says, oh, thank you for replying to me. I'm like, wait, that's normal. You ask me a question, I read it, I'm going to reply to you. I might say, I'm so sorry, I don't have time, or I can't do that, but I'm not going to, even if I know it's kind of like a scam call or a scam, I'm like,
you answer the scam calls.
Okay.
You're too good of a guy. Okay,
I have
let me
people. I have women with new Instagram account and would message me like randomly and go, oh, you have beautiful corals. Can you help me set up a tank? I'm like, I look at the Instagram, I'm like, I don't understand the scam. I'm like, I know you're not interested in the coral reef, but I'm like, I'm still polite. I still answer, oh, I'm so sorry. My recommendation is find someone local that can help you. Oh, but I want you. I'm like, no, I'm so sorry. I'm busy. I still reply because you never know. You can't assume. You never know. Maybe she's like, I highly doubt that, but it happens like every week. Like, I don't know what the scam is, but I just know it's a scam. But I'm like,
I have hot girls hitting me up on Instagram every week too.
Yeah.
It's so annoying. God, why won't they stop?
I know.
Sorry, you were saying something?
Oh no, but I'm like, I just feel like I'm spending a lot of time responding. And so when the Instagram subscriber came up, I'm like, okay, well, it's fair. Like, let me just give priority to my subscriber. They're going to buy me a cup of coffee. Basically, I'm like, let me prioritize just helping them,
For context, guys, the only other like reefing consultant I know of that has a service that you can pay for to get like direct feedback from him. He's in the UK, so he can't visit your tanks no matter where you live. No one else lives in the UK. And he charges $100 per hour on the consulting. So, I mean, if you're paying $5 a month to get access to this incredible guy with this incredible wealth of experience, I don't really think, I mean, it's a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
It's really, yeah. It's really just a way of me separating the people who are actually supporting me versus someone that's just like trying to get free help, free information, stuff like that. I'm like, if you can't even support me for $5, you know, I'm spending 3 hours with you, helping you. It's like, okay, well, the type of person I need to weed out, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if you can't afford $5, don't hesitate to ask me. I'll still help you. You know,
that's awesome. That's very, very cool.
Yeah,
so I have a question.
He's been actively selling people against giving him his money.
Yeah, do not.
Well, we have been trying to pitch KFC as a service. We've been pitching it harder than you have.
Oh, man.
I appreciate it, guys. I feel with I think with service and product and stuff, like, you know, like go with whoever you trust or go wherever you want. You know, like if you want to buy from somebody else, buy from somebody else. And, you know, it's everyone should have that choice. You know, if it doesn't work out with somebody and you need my help, then come ask me for help, and I'm willing to help you. I'm not going to go, oh, you didn't come to me first, I'm not going to help you now. You know, you messed up. No, we don't do that.
Real quick, so, Danny, you mentioned St. John's. Okay, go, Banana.
Oh. No, it's okay. It's okay.
You mentioned St. John's. Is that that fundraiser, like cooperative thing you're doing, still active?
Oh, yeah. So the thing about Reef Drip is it's a good friend of mine. You know, we met on Instagram, and when I flew out to New York, he drove 2 hours each day to come help me. Like I was at Reef-Palooza, New York, and he drove 2 hours to help me all day, then drove 2 hours back. The next day, he drove 2 hours to come help me and drove 2 hours back. So, like, you know, like a stranger, literally, because I've never met him in person until that day. And we talked a lot and stuff, but, you know, like people who like are helping me and dedicating stuff. So when his boss' son has cancer, that's our current fundraiser. It's like he asked me if I want to donate it to the charity. I'm like, you know what? I'll do better. Let me give you my top 3 torches. You know, like really nice ones. I estimate about $2,500. Well, I could donate $2,500, but why don't we take $2,500 and just like, you know, just ask people. I don't like asking people for help, but this is a good cause. I'm just going to ask people. Hopefully we could raise $5,000 for this kid that has cancer. You know, I'm like, and in the process, you know, someone gets an awesome, amazing top 3 of my top 3 torches is great. If you don't want to donate, it's okay too. You know, like when we're asking people to help a stranger, it's difficult. Like if I ask you to help somebody that you know, you're like, oh, 100%, I'll be there. But you ask somebody to help someone that they never met or will meet and know nothing about, it's a little tougher, you know. But I had to try because Brandon is such a great friend, and this is his boss' son. And I have, being a father of 2 young kids, very sentimental to children getting sick or in pain and need help. So I'm like, whatever I can do. So that's the current fundraiser. If you guys want to participate and help, check out reef_drip. That's REF_DRIP on Instagram. And he has the entire post. You can also go to the foundation page and read about the foundation itself and, you know, make sure that it's something that fits well with you, that you want to support too. You know what I mean? Don't just give money unless you believe in it.
Amazing. I just linked the Instagram post I don't think I found this the first time I saw you post it, but I'm going to read through this and find a way to enter and donate. Yeah, everyone donate if you can. Okay, Banana, what question did you try to ask when I asked my question?
I was going to ask about the antibiotics thing again, but I was going to ask, like, how can people monitor their coral after the antibiotic treatment? Like, what do you look out for? And then what do you, like, how do you know if you need to do it again?
Well, first of all, the dip does not hurt healthy coral, right? So it's safe. It's not going to kill your coral if you dip too many times. What's the downside of dipping too many times? Well, it's more time consuming and you're using up medication that you might be wasting medication. That's the downside. The upside is like, like once it's dead, let's kill it 2 more times, make sure it's really dead. So when do you know when to stop the dip? Well, I always recommend at least 3 times, 4 times, and it works out well with a 1 pill. Some people dip 1 time. I don't think that's enough because the torch are not going to be able to heal and close this wound within a day. Like when you're fragging corals and you actually nick tissue, sometimes the tissue stays, the nick stays open for like a couple of days until it starts to heal. And it does take, from what I see with torches and hammers, it takes about 3 days. That's why I recommend 3 days of continuous dip. So as soon as the tissue is closed and they're curling into the skeleton versus curling upward out or peeling, I think that's a time where you're in the clear, and just for good measure, do another dip, So I always run 3 to 5 times, but that's what I look for. I look for the tissue. If the tissue is puffy and rolling into the skeleton, the coral is healing. Now I'm talking about Euphilia torches and hammers. Mm-hmm. If the tissue is still peeling or it still smells bad, then you probably need to do the entire process again.
You need to act fast though, right? Because brown jelly, it's fast. Brown jelly hits fast. I've seen
it's extremely fast. Yeah,
like overnight, or leave for work in the morning. The torch is a little stressed out and closed. Come home from work at around 3 or 4, and then the entire thing will be covered in jelly. Like it's like really fast.
I come in the morning and I check on all my corals, and then sometime we're busy, and then at night I check on all my corals before I leave. And sometime in the morning I don't see something that's bad, like in one of the new tanks. And then in the evening I'm like, what happened to the head? It's gone, Mm-hmm. Or like this jelly on it. I'm like, okay, well, we didn't catch it in time. And I think the reason for that is bacteria replicate so much quicker than a torch can heal itself.
Especially
so
in kind of a day, like really
I think ours. I want to say within 4 hours it could double, and then it could double again in 4 hours. So it's very exponential. 1 bacteria become 2, then 2 before 16, 32, 64, and it's like
exactly.
Now you're not talking about 1 bacteria, right? You're talking about 1 million bacteria to 2 million to 4 million, and over time it just keeps consuming, and brown jelly could form within a day, half a day even. And that's where the multiple dips comes in. It's like give the coral a chance to heal, and then the bacteria won't infect it because it's not necrosis anymore. It's just healthy tissue.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's a very good point. So you only do this on torches, right? Or do you ever see brown jelly on other Euphilia like hammers or?
I've seen brown jelly on all Euphilia. I've seen brown jelly on Garnies. I've also seen brown jelly on SPS, believe it or not.
Really? Like, SPS? Do you do the KFC treatment on SPS as well, or no?
I do the KFC treatment, but I feel like anything with thin tissue, like SPS has thin tissue, right? It's not puffy. Chalice have thin tissue. Some blasto, when they're kind of like receding, the tissue is very thin. Anything with thin tissue, I tend to lean towards the lighter side. So I might remove iodine from the dip, because heavy iodine also kill coral. That's from experience. People tell me make a dip with iodine that looks like tea. I'm like, that's a horrible advice because that's too much iodine. Yeah, just too much iodine, and it kills stuff. I find like more coral die with that much iodine than having way less iodine. So that's just my personal experience. Like other people have that success, good for them. Same thing with peroxide. When I use peroxide, I use 40 mil per gallon. Very, very little, very light, and things don't oxidize until it's in the dip for like 10 minutes. And even then, it's very slow oxidation, tiny, tiny bubble that comes up. Because I've had the experience where too much peroxide will kill, But when you're thinking about doing dip for multiple corals, anything with thin tissue, SPS, blasto, gonies, even though they have skeleton, the tissue is very thin. I tend to only dip for like an hour or two, but I'll do it more regularly. Torches, hammers, and fox spawn, I've left them in there for like 2 days because I'm lazy to get back to the shop, and they're fine. As long as you keep that sponge in and the water quality is okay.
So you leave it overnight then?
I can leave it overnight or 2 days. Zoanthids. Yeah, Scolies, actually, you can leave Scolies overnight as well.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, Scolies, Acanto, they're okay. Just make sure you do the pre-wash to make sure like this dead organic is not in the dip to mess up water quality. The only meat coral that I seem to have a hard time with is Trachyphilia. I think when they start going, they usually go from the mouth outwards. Yeah. And it's very difficult. Whereas a Scolie can get damage on the edge, the mouth would be fine. Same thing with Acanto, right? They can get sting. It will recede on one side, but the mouth's fine.
Yeah, but once the mouth is out, it's out.
Yeah, like a trachea, once the mouth is gone, I can keep fragments of it alive for months using the dip.
Come back the same. I've never seen a trachea work after the mouth is gone.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
But Scolies,
Yeah, that's a good one. How do you dispose of the antibiotic treatment? Like, do you?
So I talk to other people, and they say because the antibiotics gets destroyed in light, right? Some people just say just toss it on the street. For us, once we use it, we just like pull it down the drain. Some people say when the because once we use it, the antibiotic's not as effective anymore, and then the bacteria is not going to live in fresh water, right? Or it gets dried out in our drain. What we do is we dump it into a boot, and we just leave it there until a couple of days, and we just put it down the drain. I ask people. People go, oh, you have to dispose of it properly. And then I go, well, how do you dispose of it properly? Oh, I don't know. You have to like call your local thing. And I would ask doctors, I would ask vets, and they're like, they don't know. So I haven't gotten a clear answer for that. So if someone knows for sure, let me know. I'll make sure to write that into the policy so we're not inadvertently creating a bigger problem than we should.
I recently went through a tank crash, and I used KFC to save a few of the corals that survived through it. And I had just buckets of water sitting out on my balcony for it was only like 2 buckets at a time, but it was over the course of 2 weeks. And my landlord called me and he's like, hey, so what's going on out there? Definitely thought I was like making drugs or something, but no, I was just using drugs to save my weird little wet pets.
Right. Well, if you think about antibiotics, we use amoxicillin and Cipo in our body, right? Like when it gets subscribed, it goes through your system and then you pee it out. And that goes into the toilet and that goes into the waterway. So like, how do you dispose of your pee if you're taking antibiotics?
Well, I pee in buckets and I leave it out on the balcony. That's it.
That's amazing.
Just in general, not even for antibiotics, just in general. Just a good tactic to have. Yeah. It's called Santi,
Yeah, that's definitely a important point to touch upon, and we'll have to do some more research on that.
Yeah, and actually, you brought up a very good point because it's not something that I thought of. That with antibiotics, it really depends on the half-life. And then when you brought up the pee thing, made me realize that like,
Right.
by the time you take an antibiotic, or like Cipro, for example, has a half-life of around 5 hours. So by the time you take Cipro as a person and you pee it out, you're peeing out about 70% of the Cipro that you take, right? So
Right.
it's the exact same thing as if you just dispose of it down the drain. Thank you for
And
that.
then
It's a
how do you dispose of expired antibiotics? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, that's true.
What they say? Flush it down the toilet.
Usually, yeah. At home they tell you to flush it down. In some facilities they'll have biohazard units collect them, but usually, same thing. Flush it down the toilet.
And then, like antibiotics, like I've used antibiotics that had expiration date when we first started, and so in my family there's 4 doctors in my family, right? Like in art fields. That I mean, my 2 of my siblings are doctors, and they're married to 2 doctors, so I have a lot of scientific and medical resources I can talk to. They don't know anything about corals, but they do know about drugs and stuff and interaction and what. And they don't know. They still don't know because it's limited to human, like antibiotics for humans, right? Then I go, how do you dispose of that? And like, no, just flush it down the toilet. That's what they recommend.
You might get a kick out of this, Danny. You know Ali, Amazing Aquariums and Reefs up in Orange?
Yes.
I asked him if he had any erythromycin because I needed to, complete my trifecta, the Avengers of antibiotics. I was missing erythromycin. He said, right. Oh, I have some in the back. And we checked the expiration date, October 2012.
Yeah,
so 11 years ago. It still works. I haven't tried it. I'm scared.
It still works.
I mean, don't take it yourself. But it's for the coral. It should be fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I did try a little bit just to see what it tasted like, but I'll probably be fine.
Yeah. So when we talk about antibiotics and how it's difficult to get online as well, like I've heard things like, you shouldn't be using a controlled supplement. That's why you need a prescription. Well, there's antibiotics for human. Yes, you need a doctor's prescription for. There's antibiotics for dogs, and you need a prescription for that. You get antibiotics for horses and lambs. You don't need that. Like if you use Interceptor for lamb, it's the same thing as Interceptor for dog, but you don't need a prescription for one. So with Cipro and amoxicillin and erythromycin, you can get the aquatic version for fish, and you don't need prescription for that because it's made for ornamental fish. Okay, so it's not like something you need a prescription for. You just have to look for the non-prescription one specifically made for aquariums.
Yeah, so trying to apply like selective ethics and selective regulation to a very complicated and mostly unregulated market is not really productive, right? Like, so, but I mean, obviously use discretion when treating your corals with substances like this. Don't just flush like a triple powered dose down the toilet, or don't like pour it down your plants or whatever. It's
a tough thing. I don't know how I feel about that yet because there's a valid point either way. But the good thing is it actually opens up discussion. Mm-hmm. Like if we just ignore, there's no bacterial resistant, like you do this, like it's okay, this works. I mean, the KFC dip works, you just do it on everything. You're like, wait, there's reason why there's resistance, because if we just say, they're wrong, we're right, or we're right, and it doesn't open up any type of discussion where we're gonna further the knowledge. Like, who knows who's right or wrong? That's the point right now. We don't know. Like, are you gonna create a bacteria resistant? Maybe. Is your coral gonna die if you don't treat it with antibiotics? definitely, So, I mean, if you look at the BRS video with Tan from Tidal Garden, Ryan's like, he's going to get backlash on it on YouTube, but he says, hey, if my coral is dying, it's a no-brainer. I'm going to use antibiotics to save my coral. I mean, like bacteria resistant, a theory or, it's like a proven, no, not proven, like,
proven.
Well, it's proven in another field, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's proven like in human trial maybe, but in corals and salt water and the way it's being used, like, and then you flush the bacteria down. I don't know. But Ryan had a point where I thought like, yeah, like if it is a decision between using antibiotics and letting your coral die, I'm going to use antibiotics. I'm going to save the coral, and then it gets gray. Like, do I use antibiotics in my system if my corals don't look good? I'm like, oh, that's where I'm like, no, don't do that.
Yeah, so don't use a shotgun method. Use this as like a sniper rifle when you see issues that you know how they end. This coral will die if the brown jelly is left untreated.
100%. If corals are gonna die anyway, if it's brown jelly, it was like really, really bad. Use antibiotics as a dip. Use it, save your coral. Then fix your tank. Your tank probably went that way because it's not being maintained properly, or maybe you put something bad in, bad bacteria, or you put a bad coral in and it infects your tank. But definitely use antibiotics if you're trying to save a coral in the dip. Yeah. Dosing antibiotics in the system for no reason, where if your tank is good, like don't touch it. It's not broken. Leave it alone. That's how that's my personal opinion about antibiotics. That's why I don't give the in-tank treatment out. I don't want people just to go, oh, I feel like my coral can look better. Let's just dose the whole tank with antibiotics. I'm like, no,
man,
don't, do not do
that. That was released. A number of people that would do that. The moment a coral would not open up, they'll do the in-tank treatment.
Yeah, that's so.
And I do think you objectively deserve compensation for the incredible service you provided to the community, just by making the dip, but also the follow-up that you provided, for the most part, free of charge, like on your own time. You probably saved so many individual corals. They should name all those corals after you. It should all be the KFC, XYZ. Yeah.
I'm curious because when the in-tank treatment was kind of like being used in-house, and then my supplier would send me corals that are like super crappy. I'm like, let me help you out in your farm, and I go, do this. You get stuff in. Do this before you ship me my coral, please.
Yeah.
Like, and he shipped me my coral, and like DOA went down from 10 to 20% to 1%. I'm like, and then I asked him, okay, so what's your DOA now when you bring your corals in? He's like, oh my goodness, like I don't have, like, he tells me like everything survived. I'm like, I don't believe that. I don't think everything survived. There's no way. Anything absolute is wrong. Anything that's absolute is most likely wrong, But he said, like, so I go, how much money did I save you? Like, you've saved me. So you get my point. You're like, I've saved, I've saved hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm like, so where's my discount?
Where's your discount, right?
And I'm saving you hundreds of thousands of coral, and you're still charging me what you're charging other people to import coral.
Doesn't add up.
And then,
you talk about watching this trend of bacterial infections start after the endo bans kicked back up, or after the endo bans were removed and people started exporting stuff again. So if you're giving this treatment to the suppliers literally in Indonesia, you're fixing these problems that have probably killed millions of corals and caused LFS, like fish stores and wholesalers and importers and all these people, so much money. It just boggles my mind, like the impact that this little recipe has had.
I think
it's pretty cool.
I mean, I had Indo supplier that I don't buy from, like hit me up and I'll go, yeah, I mean, I'll help you. I mean, I'm okay with that, because if you think about like how much it affects, you know, if you can fix the bacterial issue at the source, you know,
all the way over there, yeah.
All the way over there, then it comes over here, you fix it at the wholesaler, then you fix it at the fish store, then when you get to the customer, you make sure you do the due diligence and also do that. I mean, just imagine the amount of lives we've saved with the corals, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
The only thing that I've been trying to get my supplier to fix, you know, like the fishermen that comes out, and if they're collecting corals from a wild CITES, they're just like putting corals in like buckets stacked on top of each other.
Oh, look at each other and messing with each other.
Well, I cringe, right? I see torches laying on top of torches with the tissue touching each other, or like being squished. I'm like, I cringe. I'm like, no. No wonder things are coming in and dying. You have to teach these fishermen to take better care of the coral. So I told them, you know what? Like, show me how they're bringing you the corals, and it's just like buckets of coral stacked on each other. I'm like, no, don't do that. You need to come up with a way to 3D print holders, you know, like something fast, right? They're collecting for a wild CITES, something fast where they can clip on it and the torch is protected. I don't think they did that. They're like, oh, I can't teach these fishermen. They just don't learn. I'm like, then don't buy from them. You know? Yeah, everything's money related, right? Like,
yeah, it's all true.
You don't buy from them, they either starve or they're gonna fix it. You know, hopefully they choose to fix it and not starve their family.
Oh my gosh.
But I told him, you gotta stop buying from them. He's like, oh, I can't do that. But anyway, at least he's able to fix his coral.
Wow.
But yeah, I wonder, there's no way to get this number, but I wonder how many corals we've saved since we released it.
That'd be awesome, right?
Yeah, I know
billion.
vendors has. I have no idea. I wouldn't even know. I know
it's 1 billion. I counted. I got you.
He counted each one.
Yeah.
Got a list.
I know vendor has come up to me when I'm at a show. I'm like, oh, thank you so much. I've saved so much coral. I've saved thousands and thousands of dollars. I'm like, oh, nice to meet you. You know, like people are using it, and I don't even know they're using it, because hopefully it's more common knowledge, but hopefully the discussion that we have today about responsible use of antibiotics gets, I don't know how that's going to get fixed, but get discussed.
It'll be a lot of trial and error and a lot of study. That's it.
Yeah.
With time and with passion come
discussion. Yeah.
If you know the half-life of ciprofloxacin and the way to neutralize it before people add it to the plumbing and sewage systems, let us know. Our lines are open. Give us a call.
How to stabilize Cipro? Well, Cipro, Erythro, and Chemi, which is,
amoxicillin,
Amoxicillin, Amoxi, which is cool.
One thing to be aware of, I'm just reading through your bullet points here. I think one thing to be aware of is like, some people might be allergic to amoxicillin or Cipro or erythromycin. So, you know, wear protective glove, wear mask. Or just make sure you're not allergic. You know, if you're allergic to amoxicillin, I'm sure you know you're allergic to amoxicillin. You know, like,
I mean, either way, when you're dealing with sick coral or, you know, just masses of bacteria like in brown jelly, you want to wear gloves anyways. You don't want to wear gloves because one, you know, you don't know what it does to you when it cuts whatever you might have, and then two, you don't want to stress out the coral further by putting oils and just things that are already on your fingers on the coral.
I'm gonna write a screenplay about a strain of brown jelly disease that infects humans and starts the next zombie apocalypse. That's my next screenplay project.
It's actually pretty important to protect yourself as well. So one time I was cleaning a pond for my sister. It was pretty nasty. I got a cut on my arm cleaning the pond.
Oh man!
And within a couple of months, I started getting these bumps that produced, and if you connected the dot to the pump, it was going up along my lymph nodes.
It's an infection.
Yeah, it was like it started my hand, it went up my arm, and you can draw a line that this bacteria is moving up my lymph node. It's just kind of scary, and that's just from a freshwater pond. It's getting cut, getting bacteria in it. Even putting a Band-Aid, cleaning it, like it poked me in the arm, so it's already in my system. Who knows, with saltwater is maybe even more devastating. So you're barehanded in your tank, moving things around, you get a cut. It can be relatively dangerous, I think. So definitely the point about wearing gloves, protective stuff, that's super important,
Treat it like a surgical procedure. Follow the directions to the letter. Get everything ready beforehand. Wash your hands with soap and water, then with water to get the soap off. Use gloves. Treat this like the surgical medical procedure that it basically is. And you will have so much more success and safety.
If you read my intake treatment, I'm extremely detailed on it because you cannot make a mistake. Funny story, but last week someone called me. I go, oh my God, I need help. Your med kit is out of stock online. I really need help. My tank is like messed up. So I'm like, okay, well, I came in on my day off. I'm like, okay, you need the intake treatment. Let me walk you through it. Let me talk you through it. I made a package, sent it out to him. He got it a couple of days later. He called me back up and go, I'm going to return the package. I read your instruction. It's too much work. I'm like, wait.
Oh my God.
It's a couple of day work. You called me last week, panicking. Your corals in your tank were literally dying daily or every other day. You're losing corals and you're not willing to do water change every day for 3 days and clean up your corals and dose this. I'm like, okay, go ahead and send it back. I'll refund you. But I'm like, it's incredible,
Good.
It is a lot. No, it's a lot of work. Mm-hmm. I understand when you first do it, it's a lot of work, but it's worth the trouble, right? We're entrust that we're buying these corals, we're pulling it from the ocean, we're putting in a 60-gallon tank, 150-gallon tank, 500-gallon tank. It's still a small piece of ocean. You have the responsibility to keep them as healthy as humanly possible.
At that point, we are responsible for the coral, right?
Yeah.
The coral, that's my belief. The coral and the fish that we buy, you kind of have like a duty to it, as if you had a dog. Like you pulled it from its habitat in the ocean. You pulled it from where it was most comfortable, and as a result, you were not responsible for that coral or that fish. Not to view it as like an object or a thing, but to take care of it and to try to give it the best home that you can in your tank.
Yeah, unfortunately, corals and fish, they're not recognized as like more family. They're more like a pet. Like if you got like a bird, a parrot, and a dog or cat, they're like, oh, they're family because you interact with them more. I'm like, I have a blue tank that's 20 years old. I put my hands in and she lets me pet her. I'm like, that's my pet. Like she's never gonna be for sale. I go up and I can stroke her, I can pick her up, and she's not panicking and stuff. I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, they can be pet depending on how you interact with them. If you have a clownfish, don't put your hand in your tank, then you get bitten. So obviously that is like, that's not going to be a pet. But, like these fish, if you treat them properly, they recognize you. I mean, they might want food, but they recognize you that you're friendly,
That's the same reason dogs are friendly is because they want food from you.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't invalidate it.
But I think that's a little bit of a disconnect between corals, fish versus a dog, right? Because like people don't treat them as much. Like, oh, I don't have time to work on my tank. I'm like, I'm sorry for the animal that you're keeping.
Exactly.
Like you're not going to tell people, oh, then you shouldn't have this. You don't have to be. You don't have to like be the Karen out there that like kind of teach everyone how to run the world. But I'm like, I feel sorry for your pet.
Indeed.
It's a funny story.
I have another question. Say you don't have things like Cipro or Amoxi or Chemiclean on hand. Like say it's 9 p.m. and your coral starts looking like it's gonna get brown jelly.
Yeah.
Are there any substitutes or things that you can do in like as a quick, like as an emergency kind of thing? Because 9 p.m. you're not gonna find the Petco open, and you're not gonna order and do next hour shipping for Amoxi or Cipro.
Yeah, well, Petco won't have amoxicillin or antibiotics anyway.
They just carry chemi.
Okay, so what I recommend to people is like run to the supermarket, get hydrogen peroxide. What the whole point is, you're trying to put your corals on life support. You guys ever play tower defense games?
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So tower defense is sometimes it's not about winning the game. It's just kind of like staying alive. Right? You stay alive long enough, you win, because the enemy just gives up or stop coming. So all you're trying to do is, when you have a coral that's sick, is keep it alive, keep bacteria away. So hydrogen peroxide is a must-have. It's kind of underrated, but it's a must-have, because what's going to do is going to help clean the bacteria off your coral. You might have to do it 2 times a day because bacteria replicates very fast, but you could do it in the morning, and then at nighttime, do it again. The question comes, am I going to stress out my coral? Yeah, you're going to stress out your coral. You're going to take it out of the tank. You're going to put hydrogen peroxide. You're going to stress it out. What's the alternative? You leave it alone. Your coral's not stressed, but it's going to get eaten by bacteria. It's going to die. So yes, you will stress out your coral. It doesn't matter, you get injured and you get to amputate, like you have to cut off an arm. Is it going to stress out the patient? Yeah, you're going to cut off his arm. You're going to stress him out, but you're going to save his life. So hydrogen peroxide is the go-to. Like most people will have hydrogen peroxide handy, or can go get it at the supermarket.
It's like at less than $1 at Target for like a quart. I think it's insanely affordable and accessible. So just have that on hand no matter what.
And it works. It's not gonna cure your coral. Like it's not antibiotics where it's gonna fix them, but it's gonna keep your coral alive, basically on life support. If you really need to overnight antibiotics because things are dying, it's probably too late. So like with antibiotics, it's something that you want to have handy and maybe not ever use, and that's okay. You might be wasting money to have antibiotics and never use it, which is fine. But when you need it, you need it right away.
It's like a fire extinguisher. Better need it and not have it.
Yeah.
Better have it not need it and not have it.
Hydrogen peroxide, definitely number 1 on my list because it's relatively effective. Chemiclean, easily available at any pet store online and easy to get. So that's something you should always have on hand, because hydrogen peroxide with a Chemiclean dip and hydrogen peroxide again is basically a KFC dip minus the Cipro and amoxicillin and amino acids. But again, the whole point is clean the bacteria off, keep it away as much as possible until you can get the full dip or an alternative of the dip, because the KFC dip is not the only way to save coral. It's one way. If you use other antibiotics that's just as effective, that works too. But I think at the point where your coral is dying, you do need a little bit more. You do need antibiotics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
top 2, Chemiclean and hydrogen peroxide.
Yeah. So to follow up on that, when you said other antibiotics, I know the Cunningham dip, the one that he does, where he used it's similar to you have, where it's Cipro, Chemiclean, and iodine tincture, but then he also added witch hazel to it, and I realized that's something that you don't have in your recipe. I was wondering if there's a reason that you took it out or that you don't use it yourself.
I think witch hazel has antiseptic properties, right, or antibiotics property.
Yeah.
Which means it's been shown to possibly prevent bacteria from replicating as much. But you're already using antibiotic that's going to kill bacteria. So To me, because I'm already using basically 3 types of antibiotics, I've never really thought about just adding witch hazel. As an experiment, someone can do that and see the difference. But again, we talked about this earlier. Like, how do you have a control group? If you have 1 coral, that can't be a control group, and you can't have 2 coral that are damaged the same way in the same state or the same brown jelly, and then seeing which one acts better. Because it's hard to do a experiment like that. It's all like observation. So maybe do one with witch hazel. I don't think it'll hurt, and then do one without witch hazel, and see over time which one works better for you. But I have no idea, because I know I've used witch hazel before by itself. Even though other reefers they swear by witch hazel, I tried it. I'm like, it works. It doesn't work. It's nothing conclusive. It's not like the KFC dip where you do it and you see the difference, and within a few days the coral actually comes back. It's like it's a lot of stuff we do in the hobby. It's very slow. Like Ocean Box Design, I just helped him with his coral, and when he posted his statement, he says there's not much in this hobby, the reefing hobby, that is good, that happens fast or quickly. That's good. The only thing thing that happens fast is bad. Things crash bad. Nothing happens when nothing good happens quickly. But he said this is the exception. The KFC dip is the exception, because within 3 days, the result is just amazing. And he did a great job of documenting the entire process. So Ocean Box Design, look them up. Also Scooby 2 did an intake treatment, which is different from the dip that Ocean Box Design. And he also documented that very well, where he showed what his corals look like before day 1, day 2, and then he just recently posted 2 weeks after he did the intake treatment. So that is an observable thing. You use the dip and you see this happen. With witch hazel, with other things that I've tried, you do it and you're like, I don't know if it works or not. My corals still die. Some coral came back, some die. So is it the same if I didn't do anything? Would it came back? It's nothing concrete. Like you can't. There's no correlation. So that's getting back to witch hazel. Like why I don't put it in the dip. I just feel like it wasn't a big enough impact when I did it by itself to warrant adding it to this already kind of soup of stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Which honestly, I would love to be able to sit down and work through it and go, let's streamline it, let's optimize it. But it's working so well right now. I don't want to mess it up,
Yeah, that's very fair. I think what I would probably add is just
coffee.
I think the full method
Coffee.
of like the different hardware you need, like especially like getting people to get 3 buckets ready, 1 for the actual dip, 2 for hydrogen peroxide, get them all set up and rigged and so that they're all heated and aerated and sponge filtered and stuff. I wish someone would do that, but that sounds like a lot of
That sounds like a Billy type of task.
Yeah. I just thought of my own little idea for more work to do. Yay. Okay, what do we have next on the agenda, Banana?
So next we started a little bit and we brought it down and we're trying to bring it back. We're doing a fish of the week. The fish of the week is
by popular demand.
The dragon face pipefish. Huh?
Yes, sir. We asked Danny to pick a certain fish, and we called the dragonfish pipefish, which is honestly one of the coolest fish in the hobby.
Right.
It is very underrated. Yeah. So when Billy asked me, to pick fish of the week, I'm like, I don't know. So the first thing that came to my mind was like, I just ordered a bunch of dragonfish pipefish. Right. So that's the fish of the week. Oh, so why that? it's such a cool fish, right? It's not the prettiest fish. It's just kind of gray and white and stuff. But the great thing about the dragonfish pipefish is it's a very utilitarian fish, meaning when you put it in the reef tank, it has a job it's doing, right? A job that I like that it's doing. It also can handle high flow. So you can put it in an SPS tank. Most pipefish will go down the tube. They cannot swim in high flow or current. They can't attach themselves to stuff and kind of hunt. The pipefish is thin enough where they can go in between your frags, SPS colony, and they hunt for pods. So that's the most important thing. I don't like pods in my system. There's a lot of pods, and I want to control the population because pods will crawl onto corals. Anything that irritates the coral, I don't like. Snails, hermit crabs, anything that crawls on my coral immediately gets taken out and putting in the sump or the refugium. Yeah, if I see a hermit on a SPS, it doesn't get off the SPS because it will just climb back up. I take it up, it goes into the refugium, make it live and stay down there, eat whatever it wants down there. So pods, when you see a lot of pods in the system, I feel like they can irritate the coral. Sometimes when you do the dip, coral without dying, you see big amphipods that come out the mouth. I don't know if the amphipods killing the coral, right? I don't know if the amphipods killing the coral or if it was dying and the amphipods, but it's not helping, you know? Kind of like with the analogy with the caucus, right? The vulture killed the caucus, or it was the caucus dead and the vulture's there, but either way, let's say that an animal is injured, it doesn't have a chance to heal when these vultures are picking at its wound. So that's where the dragonfish, pipefish comes in, different type of wrasses, mandan, gobies. That's why there's a lot of them in my system, just to control the pod population. You can't get rid of all the pods, but it does control them. So I really like the dragonfish, pipefish for that.
They're so nice to watch though too. The way they like slink up and down and around the rocks. Yeah. And
I see people passing it.
I think I remember reading that they also have a unique property, which is they'll eat the red bugs. I think they eat red bugs.
Like red bugs,
Red bugs. Red bugs are a parasite that mainly hitchhikes on SPS.
SPS.
And the main way to treat it is the wormer, right? I forgot the name of the exact kind.
Yeah, interceptor.
Interceptor. That's it. Yeah, it's like a broad spectrum wormer. It'll treat the red bugs, but you also lose a lot of your life, the microfunding you think, like pods and whatnot. It'll decimate those. So So pipefish,
dragonfish is great. Yeah,
they're hard to keep alive though. I've only had a few make it through quarantine myself.
Any tips, Danny?
I don't really quarantine most of those type of fish. I feel like they don't really have velvet or ick from those guys. But when I talk to other LFS that does a lot of, I don't do a lot of fish. I personally don't like that many fish. They're very difficult to like bring to quarantine properly and have a high survival rate. But freshwater dip and then tank transfer method, I'll probably be, tank transfer method works great, except it's a lot of work as well. And you can't, you can't do that with like 60 fish. If you had like 3 fish, that works fine. But you have 60 fish, you can't do the tank transfer method. But tank transfer method, I think, works the best because the idea is if, let's say you have it falls off, right? In that life cycle, it goes down. If you took the fish out, did a freshwater dip, anything on the fish falls off, right? Or most of it falls off, you put it into a new tank when doesn't have an egg. You do that a few times, eventually you'll catch it enough time where the fish is healthy without ick. And even if you have a little ick, it'll be healthy enough to fight it off as well. So I like the tank transfer method, especially for tank transfer and freshwater dip, especially for angelfish. They're very sensitive to copper. So we do that.
Nice. One thing I'll also do for finicky fish is I'll just have a batch of brine shrimp hatched whenever it's scheduled to arrive. If they just gulp that stuff down, I've never seen them go downhill from there.
Yeah, brine shrimp as well as live bloodworms works really well. Live bloodworms for copper band works really well, but it's still tough to get copper band to eat.
Yeah, I tried once and I didn't have the heart again to try it again. The thought of them just coming all the way from literally the Philippines just to die in my tank, it breaks my freaking heart. So I just don't do it anymore.
Well, you gotta get fish that are not caught in the Philippines. I don't buy Philippine fish anymore. It was just at first I thought it was just the success rate for fish in the Philippines are just weak. But when talking to people that does it, it's the method of collection that is causing them to be unhealthy. So if a fish came from the Philippines, I'm like, I don't want it. I'd rather pay more for the same fish in another region of the world. I'll pay more,
because then you're also enabling that practice and basically funding it by buying from the Philippines. Wow, okay, don't get stuff from the Philippines, guys, until they fix their crap. That's awful.
No, I mean, that's just personal experience. It's like, this is the US, right? We vote with our money. Yeah. So you might not be able to fix somebody, but I'm like, if you don't buy from them anymore and they go out of business, then they either fix it and get better, or they go out of business and someone will do their job better.
Yeah. Money talks, baby.
Money talks.
That's why when people want to buy from different vendors because it's cheaper or because they get a hookup or deal, it came in, it's fresh and cheap. I'm like, I got no problem with it. Go for it.
But maybe use the intake treatment on those.
They always come back and go, oh man, should I call my supplier because these things look crap? I'm like, you just bought it, he just got it. It's gonna look crap, but if you know how to treat it, you should be okay because we all get the same coral.
That's right.
All right, myth of the week.
The myth of the week, another segment that we go back, and that is something that we've touched on a little bit. But the myth of the week is that antibiotics should be your first go-to for our coral issues. What are your thoughts on this, and why do you think that's a myth?
I think that's when I read that, I didn't quite understand what that was.
It's a phrase that often, it's a myth. It's a phrase that isn't true. But people think it should be true. We are explaining why antibiotics should not be your first go-to for our coral issues.
I think antibiotics should be the last thing you do, actually. Okay, so the KFC dip, the intake treatment, they all came out of desperation. There was a point where things were just dying. I would literally come into the shop and would want to give up, just walk away, just let things die and walk away. And it was heartbreaking. You would pull out 10, 15 holy grails every morning because things were just peeling and dying, and out of desperation. That's when I'm like, you know what? I got nothing to lose. It's either it's gonna die or I'm gonna do something and try it. And so we didn't put it in the tank. I tried it. I tried a lot of things, but we did it in a much smaller scale, right? So our system is about 5,000 gallon total with 4 different systems. We tried it on a 20-something gallon with corals that we knew from experience that were just gonna die. I'm just gonna experiment. I'm gonna try it. It was about a couple months before we found something that's like, hey, this seems to work well. Let's go ahead and there's something there. It's good. Let's try it. And then the scariest part was like, okay, I'm going to put antibiotics in my system. It's going to be at this ratio. When there's another article about Cipro on Reef to Reef, right? And they use 0.125 milligram per gallon. And I'm using a lot more than that. When I was experimenting, I was using 100 milligram per gallon. literally 100 milligram per gallon, and they're using 0.125 milligram per gallon. I'm like, okay, well, that's when 3 days, yeah, it's not going to work. Long term, we thought about putting it in the system long term so we don't have to deal with it, because dipping was a lot. And then I settled on the current thing, which is about 5 milligram plus other things that we have to do the intake right. And that worked, you know. We had to do the regular water change, get out detritus. So why detritus? Well, detritus is if you ever have a tank and you see detritus sitting in one corner, what you see is like this kind of like slime on it, or like a peeling cake off. That's probably like fungus or bacteria. So we're like, that's probably bad for the tank. Let's siphon that out and just keep the tank more clean. Going back to the human analogy, if you get surgery and you're sick, you don't go back home where they got you sick in the first place. You go into a hospital bed where it's more sanitized, so you can heal. There's no chance of infection, right?
But they still give you oxygen. They still check your blood pressure. They still replicate the life support systems that you as a human need.
Yeah. So when my dad was sick and he had surgery, he had a chance of getting a high chance of infection. So when we visited him, we had to scrub. We wore gloves, we wore masks, we wore hat, we wore like a vest. We basically scrub down to avoid anti-infection, but kind of like the same as coral. Once you do the KFC dip and you put it back into your tank that had the problem and you never fixed that problem, it's not gonna help. Mm-hmm. So that's why antibiotics is always last. You do the dip, that's needed. But what else can you do while you're doing the dip? Let's look at your tank parameters. Magnesium, calcium, phosphate is a big thing. High phosphate will kill your coral. UV and flow, right? So phosphate, UV, and flow are like the three things I always ask people about when things are not doing well. Well, I would say the second thing I ask about, the first thing I ask about is, do you have a pest, right? You feel like eating flatworm? Do you have hermit crabs? Do you have a fish that's picking at it? You have something that's causing the damage in the first place, right? That's always something physical creature. And then the second thing is parameter. If those things are okay, then it's bacterial. That's when you should use the antibiotics. When you've eliminated all these other problems. It'd be nice if you can do an ICP test before the in-tank treatment, so that the problem you're experiencing, it's not metal related or like high or low level, whatever trace element you need. And then you can do the in-tank treatment. So I think to me, it's always last.
Perfect. And it sounds like the hydrogen peroxide treatment, which is way cheaper and way faster, is probably way higher up on that list than...
That should probably be first.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that should be first. It's so easy. It's so easy. It's so cheap to do. I mean, everyone has it. It's available. And it's because when something is easy to do, you're more likely to do it. Right? Yeah. Or when something's cheap and easy, like cheap and easy, you're more likely to do it. When it's hard, well, you have to be seriously invested into that in order to do the dip. So when people reach out to me about help, they're already kind of like in desperation mode. Like things are already dying. Something already went wrong. And so I'm constantly giving advice about how to use the dip properly or how to do the in-train treatment. But that's when they're coming to me already. You know, they maybe try other things, but I always go back. First thing I ask is, do you have pests? What are your parameters? Because I can't give you advice if I don't know any of that.
Yeah. It's like walking into the doctor's office with a laptop and calling your mom on the laptop and saying, help my mom.
Yeah. I'm never one to give random advice. I think that's a horrible idea when you don't know somebody's system. So when someone asks me, the first thing I do is look at their profile, because they're gonna have a reef tank, right? Like everyone loves their coral. They're gonna show up what they have. I'm gonna look at their reef tank, see what they have, and I can spot things like cyano or dino, or like, you have a angelfish, is he picking at your coral? Things like that. And if they don't have that, I'll ask before I even give them any advice.
Oh, sweet.
Perfect.
That's perfect.
We're going to do questions now.
All right, so I've got a question here from Fisherino, and they're asking, is there a specific kind of toadstool that has long tentacles?
I personally don't know. I think there are toadstools. Some of them just have long tentacle, and it's more genetic. And anything that seems to be long tentacle, like how names are. Like, so Weeping Willow actually came from Jake Adam, right? Like, he had the original Weeping Willow. He called that because the idea of the Weeping Willow is when you turn the flow up, it actually like wilts. It topples over like a torch would. That's the original Weeping Willow. But because not too many people had access to that, anything that seems to be longer than the Tyree neon green toadstool, like which is like an inch, they'll start calling it a Weeping Willow. And I think that name kind of stuck to any toadstool that's kind of like a long tentacle,
But so we have another question from Kwekwa, who is directed towards you, then, because we know you're notorious for your beautiful torches. He wants to know what flow do you use for your torches, and are there any tips or hidden tricks for keeping them healthy and happy?
Keeping them healthy, I think it's all about just doing there's no secret. There's no like trick and stuff like that. It's all about like giving the coral what it needs. What does the coral need? Well, that's about observation. My advice for what I see in my tank might not fit your tank, so the best advice is look at your coral and tweak stuff, and then just kind of like note that your coral is happy or not happy. Change the flow, change the UV, and that's how I put corals where they are in different systems. Like, I know that this will do better in this system. If it doesn't well, I'll move it to another system. Like, oh wait, Ghani's does well in this system. They do better in the SPS system. And then I always go, well, do what I know about Ghani make sense? Everyone thinks Ghani likes dirty water. That is absolutely not true. Okay. So you have to define what is dirty water. Dirty water doesn't mean not take care of your tank. To people, dirty water, when they say dirty water, they mean high nutrient. But the tank is clean. Like, there's no detritus floating around, because Ghani's do not like detritus on them. They don't like algae on them. They like the water to be clean, but they do like high nutrient. But that's more like an observation, right? I have the ability to do that because we have multiple systems. It's more difficult in one system. As far as what I've learned on how to keep torches and happy, they don't like a lot of flow. Okay, you have too much flow. What I find is when I see people's tank and they have flow that's more unidirectional, like one side, it's not pulsing, you see the tentacle pull one way, and then if you look at the area where the tentacle is being pulled, you actually see the outline of the skeleton. If you think about how a torch skeleton looks, it's very sharp. So now you have to think, well, this tissue is now being pulled, and it's kind of like being cut on the inside. And then if you have too much flow, you'll damage that tissue on that side. Anytime you get damaged tissue, it's prone to infection. So personally, for me, I like my flow to be more gentle. It's a walking back and forth. If you look at maybe a grassland area where the grass is just kind of swaying back and forth, that's how I like the torches. They're not super, super long tentacle. I have a way to make torch just finish the flow. So I like the flow more medium. And then as far as keeping you really happy, I like them big and plump, right? So UV tend to make them shrink, so lower UV. And then lighting, I find that when you're running a lot of full spectrum light, the torches open up way bigger. The blue looks nice because the coral will glow more, but when you're running a lot of white light, everything just opened up bigger. As far as PAR is concerned, I run high PAR. My torches are up at like sometimes 300-400 PAR. I had a New York Knicks that I tested running at 600 PAR with a Kessel A360X right on top of that. It didn't color up more, but what did happen was the green in the mouth started riding up the tentacle. So it changed. The color of the nix still looks like a nix, but the mouth color creeped up a little bit more. So top 3 for keeping torch happy, low UV light, high full spectrum light, and then medium to low flow. If that's helpful. Okay, so did I answer that question?
I think you did pretty well.
You did? Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah. And then as far as how to get torch tentacle to be super long, it's not about strong flow, it's about the direction of the flow. So if you have a power head that's on top, like I use a lot of gyro type, like the long ones, I use J-bow. Because if you look at the J-bow, it actually pulls the water from the bottom of the pump and then spits up on the top, right? So when you have a torch, what I find when you have a torch right underneath the J-bow, the tentacle gets pulled upward. And when it gets pulled upward,
it gets stretched.
It gets stretched. Yeah, it gets stretched and stretched and stretched. So if you look at tanks that has super long tentacle, the flow usually comes from the bottom pushing up, or the flow starts from the top, but it's pulling the water upward here. So you're pulling the tentacle.
Like
that makes sense, right? If you want something to get longer, like a piece of gum, you pull it, you don't push it. So what I mean by pushing is like sometimes people have the power head and it's pushing the flow into the mouth of the torch, and so the torch is not going to open up big because it's getting pushed, right? But if you pull the tentacle, it gets longer and longer. You can get tentacles that are like 10 inches by doing that method, maybe longer.
I've seen them in the KFC shop. They're real.
Yeah, so I did the same thing with what I call the barber shop nix, and the tentacle got super, super long because of that. I'm thinking about making a device where you put a torch in the middle, right? And then this PVC pipe that's in a circle that's pushing you drill a little hose like a spray bar, but then it's the water coming out is pushing upward, so you're constantly pulling the torch tentacle up. I think that will make the tentacle pretty long. Someone can DIY that. Let me know.
That'd be really cool to try out. It's really cool.
I mean, it should work in theory, right? Because you're constantly stretching the tentacle upward.
Yeah. Okay, so we have one last question. This is from Phil in Chicago. And he asked, can you use the KFC dip on SPS in conjunction or with the potassium chloride dip, the KCl?
No. Potassium chloride is it's a dip that is used to basically remove flatworm, aqua-eating flatworm, right, on SPS. Works really well, really cheap, excellent resource to use. But you cannot put the potassium chloride, in potassium chloride for that long. And with the KFC dip, because it's antibiotics, it needs time to work, right? So I would say, so the procedure that we use when we're dipping corals is when corals come in, we dip for pests, right? Potassium chloride, Coral X, Revive, whatever it takes. In fact, we mix Revive with potassium chloride because I think the high level of salt in potassium chloride really pisses off the inverts, right? And then Coral X or Revive just pisses off everything else. It's easy to knock off. Once we do that, we rinse, we go into the KFC dip, and then we rinse in peroxide and then we put in our system, and then they go to the in-tank treatment. So with your question, I would not mix them together. I would separate them into, like Billy says, 3 containers, right? Dip for pests, dip for bacteria, rinse with peroxide.
Well, we just want to say thank you again so much for coming on with us, Danny from Kung Fu Coral. Again, if you want more advice from Danny, or if you want to know his in-tank regimen, feel free to follow him on Instagram at Kung Fu Coral.
Yeah, Kung Fu Coral is right.
And then you can also purchase packs of his KFC treatment on the website, kungfucoral.com. And
Yes.
yeah, and then we'll also have that listed when we post it on Spotify. The links will be there for them.
Oh, yeah. One more thing I want to add about the KFC dip online is we are putting in Mycobacter 7 back into the kit at the same price. So I was charging $150 for everything, but because I feel like the in-tank treatment has really saved literally hundreds of tanks by now that I personally help people. I'm just going to put Mycobacter 7 back into the kit. And it's the same. I'm not charging more. It's the same price. So we're actually going to make even less on the kit. But I think it's a good thing to have because if someone hits me up, buy the kit and hits me up for the in-tank treatment, they basically have everything they need. They don't have to go buy anything else. You know, they have enough for the in-tank and the dip. So it's just basically everything you need to do versus trying to go out, spend money on shipping and buying everything else. So we haven't announced that yet. So it's the first time you guys know about that. But we're just going to add it. We made new kits and we just decided to let's just add it.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But yeah, thank you so much again for coming on. We can't tell you how much we appreciate you taking the time out of your day. And I mean, you'll always be the person that we refer to for antibiotic treatment and questions of this sort. You've done a huge service to the hobby with all the experimenting and the losses that you've had. Because there's been losses in the experimentation and the process of it.
Oh, there's been tons of losses and heartache and but I think we're at a good point right now because someone did it, you know? It's not like it's not possible to do, but someone took the risk and
someone took the risk.
And I took the risk out of desperation, to be honest. It's not like I was out to do good. I was out to save my coral.
Yeah. Well, that's what they say. From desperation comes inspiration, right?
Yep, exactly.
And yeah, thank you so much. And we will hopefully have you on again sometime. We talk about torture or anything of the sort. Yep.
Well, sounds good, you guys. Thank you so much for having me. Super fun talk. You know, really, really great questions. Some of them I had to think about as when Billy forwarded me this stuff. But I think it's important whether we agree on the use of antibiotics or not. It is a great tool that is working. It would be nice if someone that with much more scientific background and willing to do that is to does some more research.
We are going to let you go, Danny. We've talked to you way too much. We want to let you get back to your kids and your family.
Thank you so much for this again.
Yeah, for real.
And we appreciate being here. You can't tell me what you're here.
Thank you, guys. It's been a blast. Have a great night.
Night. You too.
Night,
all right. That's all we have for today. Farewell and easy reefing. Thank you for listening to another episode of Slice of the Reef,
your number one podcast for all things fishy, with your hosts, Giancarlo and Billy. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else that podcasts are held. That way, you'll never miss an episode. If you want to be a part of our podcast, join us on discord.xyz/Slice of the Reef, where we'll be recording in front of a live audience. We also give you a moment at the end of every episode for a live Q&A session, and we're very interactive with our fans. So we'd love for you to join. You can also check out our website for articles, guides, calculators, and information on our upcoming episodes at sliceofthereef.org. Hope to see you guys soon.
Farewell and easy reefing.